Summer seems like the season we would get the most exercise and eat the most fruits and vegetables. So why the summer weight gain?
One of the moms that I work with told me the other day that she's basically turned into an Uber driver. And she's just driving all day long, taking kids to camp, things like that. And she's stopping to get food. And she has all these snacks in the car.
Our expert dietitian explains the pitfalls we all experience and tells us the best food and drinks to have in those hot summer months. And the best exercise to do to keep in shape.
And I had a patient ask me the other day, she said, if you only had 20 minutes, would you do cardio or weights? And I said, that's a no-brainer.
That's today on Mom Squad. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me here on Mom Squad. I'm Maureen Kyle. We are in the best part of summer with all the parties and vacations and lazy mornings. But all of this can lead to the dreaded summer weight gain. It's almost as bad as winter holiday weight gain. In a few minutes, we talk with one of my favorite Mom Squad experts, dietitian Kristen Kirkpatrick. She explains why those calories are creeping in and that scale could creep up. But first, a mom is going viral for her rant about planning her family's vacation and the lack of appreciation that came afterwards. Take a look.
I'm on family vacation right now with my 2 teenagers and my husband. We flew in late last night. I think we got in at like 12:15 a.m. and headed to get a rental car and then got to our Airbnb. And I am frustrated. So as a mom, I planned everything. I asked for input probably 50 times, things they wanted to do. Do they have any input on where they want to stay, where they want to eat? Anything, any input. And everyone just said the same thing. Nope, we're good. We're good. Whatever you want, Mom. I don't care. Okay, I don't care. Great. Glad I'm planning this vacation for everybody to not care. But I digress. So when we got to the rental car counter, the car that I selected would not have fit all our luggage. So ultimately, we decided to upgrade. But not without comments about how Mom is so cheap and she got a small car and this and that. I didn't. I got an SUV, but it was like the small SUV, so it doesn't hold as much. Okay, no problem. We upgrade. We get to the Airbnb, and I didn't realize this. I mean, you don't know until you get here, but there are 3 stories. It's a lot of stairs. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of stairs, and sleeping arrangements are not like perfect / ideal, but they're fine. Everybody has a bed. We're safe. Whatever. Oh my God, Mom is never going to be in charge of booking the Airbnb again. Like, she can't even, this, that, and the other. Then this morning, we wake up and it's an urban setting. We live in a very quiet suburban setting, and my husband's saying how he barely slept and this and that. And I'm just like, enough. This is our first day. We're barely here. I have been the only one to put in all the effort in planning this trip. And I know there's videos on mental load, but like, this is prime time example of me shouldering the mental load for my entire family, and everybody has something to say about it. So yeah, I'm frustrated. Please pray for me that we can all turn our attitudes around and have a great day.
I think we can all relate to the planning especially and underappreciation. We do everything we can as moms and parents to make the summer as magical as possible, not just for the kids, but for ourselves. It's the time of year we're at the pool or out on someone's patio enjoying drinks and appetizers. It's also wedding season, graduation party season, really any excuse to party. Many of us, and I include myself, lose track of the calories and the exercise routine. Dietitian Kristen Kirkpatrick talked to me about the ways high-calorie foods sneak in and how to avoid it. Kristen, thank you so much for joining us. A big question, or actually a big topic that I think my friends and I always talk about, is how does that summer weight gain sneak up on us? Do you get this question from your clients?
Oh, from my clients and all the moms in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
So.
I'm glad I'm not alone. That makes me feel better.
You're not alone. And I feel like this is something every mom really struggles with, myself included. I think part of that concept of the weight gain is really associated with the fact that we are constantly on the go during the summer, which is a great thing. But what else occurs is that we are always eating. We are always sitting at the pool having a snack. There's a lot of drinking going on. So it's actually very reasonable that summer weight comes on. it's that time of the year, right? So we're kind of hope we're making the good decisions, but we're not making the best decisions. And our activity level might not be as high, even though it's nicer outside.
So you mentioned sort of we're always eating. And in my mind, thinking of whether somebody's working from home or whatever that routine is, the routine is thrown off because kids are at home or, it's just not that 9-month, send the kids off to school, they're back from school. The routine is thrown off. So is that the number one reason, do you think, that we kind of get thrown off with how much we're eating and when we're eating?
So I think that, number one, the routine is a big thing. And I hear this from my patients all the time. One of the moms that I work with told me the other day that she's basically turned into an Uber driver. And she's just driving all day long, taking kids to camp, things like that. And she's stopping to get food and she has all these snacks in the car. So routine is one of them. One of the things I tell my patients to consider is, as weird as it sounds, actually starting a new routine during the summer. So that could be something as simple as, okay, I'm going to get up a little bit earlier because it's lighter outside, and I'm going to go for a walk before the kids get up. Or I've been doing a lot of cardio. This summer, I'm going to spend 15 minutes every other day and start doing some weights, some resistance training. So actually getting in the mode of a new routine versus what's the routine you did all year long that now you're just getting bored of and you're so busy so it's hard to really maintain it. So that's kind of one thing. The other place where our routine changes, at least what I see in my patients, is alcohol. So in the summer months, many of my clients tell me, I used to just have a drink on the weekend, and now it could be a Monday afternoon, and my friend says, hey, do you want to go and watch the kids play tennis? And my friend will bring a drink. And that will pile on the pounds as well. So I think we don't recognize how much alcohol is being consumed during the summer because it's part of that social outlet that we have during these summer months where it's so beautiful, we're outside. That's a killer for weight.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why we kind of pile on some of the pounds.
All right. So what I want to talk to you about is better decisions. And I think, we can break this up into drinks, food, and then exercise. So since you brought up drinks, I mean, that's part of the beauty of summer is that there is this sense of freedom, like Monday afternoon, why not? We have the kids, right? Even if it's after work or if it's middle of the day, it's sort of like that afternoon cocktail sneaks in. And I know with my friends, they think those seltzers, the spiked seltzers aren't high calorie or they're not. Does it matter? Is there a better choice when it comes to alcohol?
Well, it's not so much that the calories are really high. Those seltzers are really attractive because they're usually 90 calories, or below. But what happens is even if we start to get, women get drunk earlier than men do in terms of kind of how easy it is for us to start feeling the effects of alcohol. And that has to do with certain indicators within our body that are different than men, as well as how much water we hold, things like that. But the point here is that regardless of the calories, once you start feeling the effects of alcohol, your habits with eating kind of go out the window. So even if your goal was, I'm just going to have some grilled chicken tonight and really enjoy myself, once we start getting a little bit drunk, all of a sudden the s'mores look a lot better. So our decision making is altered. So one of the things I say is, before you have a drink, maybe start looking at some of the really awesome non-alcoholic mocktails that are out there. There's some great options now because the lack of drinking is really trending. So we're seeing a lot more companies offer some of these options. They're still tasty. Of course, they don't have the alcohol. So maybe start with that. Start with something that's non-alcoholic. And then, once you get through an hour or two, you might lose the craving that you had at the beginning of the event. So that's one of the things I tell my patients. Make a mocktail, or there's so many on the market now. Start trying some new options. You'd be surprised what you might enjoy. Okay.
And then when you are out for dinner and drinks, maybe with friends, because I feel like that is, everybody wants to take advantage of patio season if the weather is nicer. Is there, when you're looking at that drink menu, I know I have friends who say, they swear, I'm going to go a low calorie tequila, then, it's like, or maybe they try to pick like the less sugary wine. If you are taking a look at that menu option, what would you grab and go for?
Yeah, so I actually, because we're thinking about summer, thinking about sitting on the patio and what's the environment we imagine there, a lot of times I will recommend a wine spritzer. So really just taking like whatever your favorite wine is, and we're talking like a white wine type of option, which is very popular in the summer, and then mixing that with seltzer water. So even if you have one like 5 to 6 ounce glass of wine, you can mix small amounts of that with seltzer water. That can take you through the whole dinner. So again, you're still having a drink, you're still part of the crowd, you're still having some alcohol, but you're not having this huge bolus of alcohol entering your system and then piling on a second or a third drink. So that's one option, obviously. You know, even though we are attracted from a carbohydrate standpoint to hard liquor is going to, again, go back to making us inebriated much quicker because it's hard liquor, right? So it's got a higher alcohol by volume percentage. And again, even if you weren't planning to have desserts, dessert looks real good when you've had a few drinks in you, right? So you know, what can you do to really kind of space things out? And a lot of times that can be a wine spritzer. Now, if you're out with your girlfriends, a lot of times I'll say, hey, if you have 4 people at the table, order a bottle of wine, and you are now forced to each have a little bit over 1 glass, and then that's the end of it.
Yeah.
So that's another option you can think of where you're still having the social aspect of it. You're not the person sitting there with the iced tea and feeling like, oh, I'm the odd guy out.
Right.
But you can take some moves to try and reduce the amount.
So when it comes to appetizers, snacks, and we'll get into, I feel like everybody kind of knows what entrees they should be getting, but let's talk about those sneaky snacks, because that's where I feel like we all have our pitfalls. What do you think? Let's start with sort of the worst options. What shouldn't we be grabbing?
So when we're thinking about the worst options, we got to look at what in the house is considered ultra processed. So that's going to be really your traditional snacky snacks. So that could be chips, that could even be pretzels. It could be a frozen pizza that you just kind of cut up and have there for the kids, and you end up eating half of it, right? But ultra processed foods, we know we have plenty of data now that shows that they do hijack areas of the brain which prohibit us from recognizing when we're full. So let's look at it from the opposite end. Let's look at foods that actually help us get full and stay full. So things that have healthy fats, things that have lean sources of protein, things that have fiber, right? So not to say, hey, you can't have a potato chip during summer. You can, but maybe let's look for an option or even consider making them ourselves that's a little less processed, because it's the additives and things like that that really kind of go downhill in terms of being able to assess hunger. So again, my kids a lot of times will tell me, Mom, we don't want fruit today. We actually want a cookie, right? So I get that. I do. But maybe kind of portioning those out and having those cookies in such a place where it's not really eye level to you as the mom. It's not the first thing you see. And it's not eye level to them. So whatever you see first is, statistically speaking, more likely what you're going to grab. Mm-hmm. So if you have like a great trail mix that you make with your kids and that's what they see first, that's hopefully what they will grab over an ultra processed food.
Let's talk about that fruit, because I know there's been conversations about, well, too much fruit, even if it's a natural sugar, isn't exactly great for you either. Like when you cut up the whole watermelon and you end up eating half the watermelon just sitting there, is that good or is that bad? Like, is this a myth that eating a lot of it is bad for you, or is that just a lie that we've been told?
Well, the thing is that as Americans, we don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. We don't get those antioxidants in. So typically, if I'm going to limit fruit in a patient, it's got to be because that patient is really struggling with blood sugar problems, insulin resistance, hard to manage sugar because they're diabetic, et cetera. So we can really clump these things into low glycemic load and high glycemic load. So Maureen, you mentioned watermelon, and watermelon is actually lower in the glycemic load because it has so much hydration.
Oh, wow.
So there's so much water in watermelon, and it's got fiber, it's got lycopene. It's such a better option than, let's say, the bowl of some sort of snack, you know, that comes out of the bag, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things I tell my patients is that fruit actually is going to give you some hydration as well. So snacking on fruit, this is a great option over some of those other things that we were just discussing. So if you really want to go lower glycemic load and you say, oh, I love fruit, but I want things that don't have as much sugar, then that's going to be things like peaches, any kind of stone fruit. So peaches, cherries, citrus, berries, apples, and pears. Those are going to be your big ones that have a lot of fiber, but aren't going to have as much of an effect on blood sugar as something like pineapple or mango.
After a quick break, we ask Kristen how she gets her kids to eat vegetables and what throws us off of our workout routine.
Even though we think, oh, it's going to be sunny and beautiful, it could be too hot and it might be contraindicated. So that's number one. But really, you really hit it early, which is the lack of routine.
Kristen tells us how to sneak in exercise even with the kids' activities. Welcome back. We've been talking with dietitian Kristen Kirkpatrick about that sneaky summer weight gain. We've talked about how those summer alcoholic drinks can do a lot of damage and how to always have healthy snacks on hand. But there's a big difference between having healthy snacks and getting your kids to eat them. What do you do to make sure that your kids are getting more fruits? I feel like are easy in my house, but even those vegetables. Is there any trick that you can share with us that, you know, even I'll be eating more vegetables, but especially the kids?
Yeah. So making it easy and making it really attractive to them. So one example I give is that my kids, like, if I put a piece of broccoli on their plate, they're going to be like, are you kidding me? I'm not going to touch this. I'll sit here all night and stare at it rather than you have one bite of it, right? So again, like what I do is, well, let's try and put broccoli in another form and see if you like it. Let's maybe mix the broccoli with some tater tots, with some cheese, and let's bake them. Now it's a lot more attractive and they're still getting all of the great benefits that broccoli provides. So really, regardless if they're really young or if they're teenagers, trying to get age appropriately, their insight and their buy-in is going to be really critical. Not every kid is going to like broccoli, even if you package it right. So the other choice here is to find out what they actually enjoy. So say, hey, I get it. There's a lot of vegetables out there. What do you think you would enjoy that we can have as a family when we're having dinner or we're having our snacks, whatever the choice may be? And then I think the other thing is, you know, letting them be kids. So if we're just giving them almonds and carrot sticks and apples throughout the day, it's great if that's something they love. But if it's something that they're really struggling with, it's okay to have the cookie every once in a while. It's okay to go get the ice cream every once in a while. Yeah. We just can't do that too often because it replaces other nutrient-dense options that we have.
Yeah. I feel like there's also a lot of mixed messaging, and I've probably asked you about this before. Because, you know, one day you hear eggs are good for you. No, wait, eggs are bad for you. You know, eat that cheese stick, which we've talked about the cheese sticks before being a good snack. No, you know, like cheese and dairy, don't eat it. That could. I feel like we get so much mixed messaging on what's good and what's bad. What advice do you have for all of us confused people out there that are just trying to eat the right things?
Right. So, you know, I always go back to that Michael Pollan definition of food. Something that comes from nature, is fed from nature, and will eventually rot. Food is always going to be a better choice than something that is manufactured within a lab, for example, or manufactured in some sort of plant. Okay, so anytime we can get a plant, that is going to be beneficial. A lean source of protein, eggs is a great example of that. That is going to be beneficial. We tend not to overeat those things. So keep in mind when we think about either our children or we think about ourselves at the end of the summer, it is massive overeating and lack of activity that is going to start piling on the pounds. So it's really hard to sit down and eat 7 apples, right? But it's much easier to have like the entire bag of chips. So I think when we're looking at what the myths are, you know, number one, look at who you're getting advice from. I mean, that seems obvious, but if we look at social media, not everyone there is credentialed to give good guidance. Not everyone is unbiased. So number one, look at what your personal preferences are. in that food category. Look what fits within things that you like, fits within your budget, fits within your cultural preferences. That's a better way to look at things versus, oh, I can't have an egg because I heard it's bad, right? There's a lot of protein in egg. There's B vitamins. There's a lot of great stuff in eggs too. And we tend not to overeat that as much. So what can we have that's satisfying? And then what does it look like in terms of structuring our dietary pattern?
Yeah. Let's talk about activity too, because you brought up activity level. And I always, year round, I think, oh, well, summer, I am going to be more active. I'm going to be outside all the time, sun up to sundown. We're just going to be running around. But where is it that people fall short of that activity level?
So I think we fall short on a few different areas, right? Number one, if the heat is going to get really high, right? So what you're experiencing this week, it might make you say to yourself, I'm not going to go outside. It's actually dangerous for me to go outside. And I don't want to work out inside. Either I don't have the equipment or I don't have the will to do it, right? So during the school year, kids go to school, I go to the gym. We have this whole routine that we're associated with. But during summer, that's not the case. So that routine change is really what throws us off from our activity level. I mentioned going to the pool. I feel like we're always meeting at the pool and the moms are just sitting there on a lounge chair. And typically someone's bringing a drink, right? The day. So we're not getting in the pool with the kids and doing a whole bunch of laps. So there's a lot of activities where we actually just could be lying around. We might be even less busy because we're just with the kids and their activities. And so that's why we lack the physical activity component. So again, figure out what can you do? And do you have it in you to say, all right, I'm going to get up earlier in the summer to do something? Anything that can get you a little bit more vertical, standing, getting some activity will be really beneficial. And of course, including your kids in the process. Yeah. That's always a win.
Coming up, Kristen tells you the best exercise you should be doing every day.
And I had a patient ask me the other day, she said, if you only had 20 minutes, would you do cardio or weights? And I said, that's a no-brainer.
And how you can include it into your daily routine. So far, we've talked about which summer drinks don't knock your health routine off track and which snacks to reach for when you're poolside or with friends. But when it comes to exercise, there's one routine that you should be incorporating into your everyday. For somebody who doesn't have a regular exercise routine, what do you recommend that they start with?
Oh, walking, for sure.
Yeah.
Pretty much anyone can walk. It's an easy thing to do. It's free. You don't have to join a gym to do it. And the summer months are just really wonderful. I mean, just looking at the park systems in different cities that we have, it's a really great opportunity to get those steps that we're lacking in the summer. And of course, studies show that with us and with our kids, the more steps we get, the longer we live. So it's just something that the whole family can do, and you can do whatever pace you want as long as you're out there and doing it, right? So that could be the change in routine that you associate. Hey, kids, we're going to go to the pool today. We're going to do all these great things, but we are going to go for a 35-minute walk in the park. And, we're going to figure out what that looks like in terms of our day and our schedule. So that's why I said involve your kids. Kind of make exercise like walking part of their routine, and it will be forcing you to create it in your routine as well.
And you mentioned earlier, including those weights.
Yeah.
Why is it important for people to do some sort of weight lifting or weight resistance training?
Yeah, this is so interesting, Maureen. I had a patient ask me the other day, she said, if you only had 20 minutes, would you do cardio or weights? And I said, that's a no-brainer. I do weights every single time. So what happens is, especially for women, as we get older, we start losing muscle. So as we lose muscle, we are more likely to put on weight because our metabolism is shifted. So that's kind of number one. But number two, we have so many studies showing the benefits of resistance training, even to things we're not thinking about, like our brain. So there's studies showing that resistance training helps with improving cognitive function. So we have a lot of benefit here. And I think sometimes we just think, oh, I just got to get my heart rate up. That's important too. But we also have to think about the maintenance and the building of muscle, which is why, again, you just need 15 minutes a day. If you can do more, it's great. Yeah. But picking up some weights, if you don't have weights, just doing some push-ups, and that can be against a wall, doing a plank, anything that forces you to give some sort of breakdown of your muscles so they can build up. In my opinion, if you only are going to do one thing, resistance training might be a better option.
And I feel like there are some routines or some exercises that people can find online, right? Like you don't have to search far to find a 20-minute body resistance routine, right?
Yes. Yeah. And you can do it anywhere, right? I mean, again, like if you're taking your kids to the pool and it's just you, do a plank, right?
Right.
That's gonna make such a big difference, and it's gonna be a much better option than just sitting there reading the book.
True. And I remember, especially right after, when I had, and my kids are still little, but the toddlers, by like tossing them up in the air, I was like, okay, I'm getting my arm workout here if I'm throwing them in the pool and, swimming around with them in that way. So finding ways to sneak in those exercises.
Finding ways to sneak in exercise, right? And even if you say, okay, I don't want to use my body weight, but I don't want to buy weights, buying resistant bands can be huge. I mean, when we go on vacation, if we are going to be someplace that might not have a gym, I'll just throw those in my bag. So there's great opportunity to be able to get our muscles to be in a better place. Doing some squats, that's another great example, right? But just doing something so we are constantly looking at maintenance of our muscles. And, we have studies showing that if we start that routine, we're more likely to keep it. So once the kids go back to school, you'll continue to work on that resistance training. You'll continue to build muscle. And, that helps our confidence as well. I have patients, and as women, they tell me, once I started doing weights and I started to feel stronger, my shoulders looked better in a tank top, that gave me the confidence I needed.
Yeah. Well, I wish we were in the same city, so that we could meet for white wine spritzers.
Yes, after our walk.
and then go for a walk afterwards. Kristen, thank you so much. I love all of this information. I feel like I could talk to you every week and get more and new information on how I should be living life. So I really appreciate your time.
Anytime. You're helping so many people. Moms need it.
I know, we do. We need those tank top shoulders.
Yes,
Thank you. After we were done with our interview, Kristen and I were catching up on some topics. She had a lot of insight into weight loss drugs, how people are taking them, and how to wean off of them. We are going to be covering that in a few weeks on Mom Squad, so stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in today. We want you to truly be part of the squad. Join us on Mom Squad with Maureen Kyle Facebook page, or on Mom Squad on Instagram @Mom Squad Show. We'll see you right back here next time.